Hello again. Welcome to part 13 of My Sister's Got a Spoon Up Her Nose. We're on to chapter 7, which is called Some Big Surprises. Who are these? Do you remember? I think we've got Dad and Mr. Tug. Look at their facial expressions and look at the lines on their cheeks. I think that's supposed to show that they've gone a bit red in the face. Do they look like they're having a good laugh? They look like they're shouting at each other and arguing, don't they? And we know that Dad and Mr. Tug do this. They've certainly not been the best of friends so far in this story. So let's find out what some of the big surprises are today. I don't believe it! Dad's covered in spots this morning. He has got chicken pox. Even Dad looks surprised. Don't go near Cheese and Tomato, Mum ordered. We don't want them going down with the pox as well. Pox, repeated Cheese. Poo pox, cried Tomato, lifting her cereal bowl and tipping it over her head. Oh, for heaven's sake, said Mum. Nicholas, look after Cheese, will you, while I clean up Tomato. She glanced at Dad. Are you well enough to wipe down the table and Tomato's high chair while I sort her out? Dad nodded. I don't feel as bad as I look, he said, holding up his arms and gazing at the spots. You do the twins and I'll do the washing up and clearing. Then I think I'd better go and lie down for a bit. I played with Cheese in the room next door. I was a bit fed up, actually. I had really been looking forward to the parachute jump, and now Dad wouldn't be able to take part. Mum looked a bit dejected too when she came back from sorting Tomato. Can you work out from what's happening in the story what the word dejected means? Nicholas says he's a bit fed up. Mum looks a bit dejected too. It means pretty much the same. It means a bit fed up, a bit disappointed. She went to see how Dad was doing. Have you got a temperature? She asked him. I think so. We'd better get you to a doctor. I don't need a doctor, said Dad. It's obviously chicken pox. He took his hands out of the washing up bowl and showed Mum. Are you sure? Asked Mum, studying his arms. I thought you had more spots than that. You had spots on your hands, didn't you? Dad was turning red. No, only my arms. They were on the back of your hands when you showed me before you started doing the washing up, and your hands got wet. Let me take a closer look. Dad began to back away, but Mum grabbed his arm. She took a wet cloth and rubbed at his skin. Oh, look, said Mum. Fancy that. The spots have gone. I wonder why that is. It looks as if someone used a red felt tip pen to make pretend spots on their arm. I wonder who that might have been. Who do you think it might have been? Are you surprised that he's done that? Now Dad was even redder than his spots. I think Cheese must have come and done it to me while I was asleep. So why do you think Dad's gone red? Do you think he's feeling embarrassed? That is the most feeble excuse I have ever heard, Ron. Go and get yourself cleaned up. You've got a parachute jump to make this afternoon. Must I? Squeaked Dad. What are you, man or mouse? Mum demanded. More like a squirrel, I think, answered Dad. No, much more like a chicken, especially with those spots, Mum shot back. Go and wash, she rounded on me. And you can stop grinning like that, Nicholas. It's not funny. The only thing was, even as Mum said this, she winked at me. She just didn't want Dad to know she thought it was funny. Parents, honestly. Dad got cleaned up and a little later we set off for the airfield. It was miles away and seemed to be in the middle of nowhere. There were a few small planes parked against the perimeter fence. Where does a perimeter fence go? It goes round the perimeter. It goes round the outside of the area. Dad drove across to a huddle of huts and we got out of the car. A strong smell of frying bacon came from a small canteen. I'm going to get a bacon sandwich, said Mum. Anyone Dogs want one. Yes, please, I shouted. Dad was as pale as anything. Not hungry, he whispered. Look, isn't that Mr. Tug's car? Asked Mum, and I nodded. I can see Mrs. Tug getting out, but Mr. Tug is still inside. I wonder why. Mrs. Tug gazed round the airfield, caught sight of us, and waved. She came across. He won't get out yet, she said. He's as white as... Mrs. Tug looked at my dad, gave a quiet chuckle, and leaned closer to Mum so she could whisper, Actually, my husband is about the same colour as yours. I've never seen him so nervous and scared. The two of them went into a huddle and carried on whispering and smiling and nodding at each other for a while. At last, Mrs. Tug set off back to the car. Well, it seems as though Mum and Mrs. Tug have got a much better relationship than Dad and Mr. Tug, doesn't it? What did she want? Asked Dad. She's just been telling me how scared Mr. Tug is. You wouldn't believe it, would you? Mr. Tug is scared? The change that came over my dad was astonishing. He straightened his back, tipped up his chin and puffed out his chest. He even managed a grim smile. Sort of. Ha! Chortled Dad. Of course he's scared. What a fool. Fancy being scared of a silly old plane ride and a silly old parachute jump. Ha! I'm going to go and have a word with the old scaredy cat. And with that, Dad marched off towards the Tug's car. He was halfway there when the driver's door opened and out stepped Mr. Tug himself. He started off towards my father. Mum grabbed my shoulder. Quick, I want to hear what they're saying, Nicholas. Creep a bit closer. We went and crouched round the corner of a building, just out of sight, but we caught every word. You're scared, aren't you? Dad said, accusingly, and Mr. Tug snorted. Pah! Me? You must be joking. You're the one that's scared. Look at you. You're trembling from head to foot. That's because there's a cold wind blowing, my dad shot back. Besides, your face is as white as a bowl of rice and a great deal soggier. And you're gritting your teeth to stop them chattering, snapped Mr. Tug. So you're going up in the plane then? Asked Dad. Of course. Why? Have you decided to stay on the ground? No, I'm going up, said Dad, gazing skyward. Right up there, he gulped. Higher than the birds. Mr. Tug followed Dad's gaze. I saw him gulp as well. Me too, he announced. Of course, if you decide to stay down here, then there won't be much point in me going up there. Oh, I'm going up there, all right, said Dad, unless, of course, you say you're going to stay down here. No, I'm going up, said Mr. Tug. So am I, cried Dad. So that's decided then, said Mr. Tug. Yes, it is, shouted Dad. Come on then, we'd better go and get kitted up. You lead the way. No, after you, said Dad. In the end, they marched off side by side and disappeared into the kitting out room. Mrs. Tug came back and joined us. Mum looked at her and they burst out laughing. Worked like a dream, said Mrs. Tug. I've just got one question for you today. What worked like a dream? Mrs. Tug was laughing and saying it worked like a dream. Well, what worked like a dream? I look forward to getting your email with the answer on it. Thank you very much. Bye for now.